each market had to figure out, okay, you're not going to send like 10 million messages, the maximum per day is X, Y, and Z, and you must keep to that. If you want to, reach your performance, because each country had a performance target, you had to figure out, okay, is 5 messages enough? For example, I don't remember the exact number of messages we had, but you had to figure out, okay, based on the targets we have, are these messages effective enough? And are they within the guardrails we've been given?
This episode is brought to you by PlayMops, your marketing ops partner. Choose PlayMops when you need independent and strategic MarTech advisory from start to finish, or marketing ops for hire. Get execution where and when you need it. Playmops.io.
Welcome to The Ordinary. I'm your host, Odd Morten Sørensen, and today we're going to talk about why digital transformation fails, even when the technology actually works. My guest today has spent over a decade working at the intersection of marketing technology, digital commerce, and ecosystem development across Africa, Australia, and Asia. She led CRM performance across 12 African markets at Jumia, one of the continent's largest e-commerce groups, where she helped scale CRM from a supporting marketing channel into a major revenue contributor across the region. She's been head of product at an African tech startup, and currently through her consultancy, EcommEssentials, she works with NGOs designing SME capacity building programs and advises organizations on AI and digital transformation. Fiona is also a fellow podcast host running the MarTech Unravelled Podcast out of Nairobi. Furthermore, she's a member of the Smart Africa AI Council working groups and serves as marketing director for Women in Tech Kenya. Her work sits at a crossroad I find genuinely fascinating. Digital transformation in constrained environments, where you simply can't buy your way out of a problem. And by that, I say, welcome, Fiona Ngaruro.
Thank you, Odd. I'm so happy to be on your podcast today. So looking forward to this conversation. It's been a long time coming, so glad we finally are able to have this meeting and this conversation. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So we see this pattern in marketing operations over and over. Companies invest heavily in platforms, and then fundamentally nothing changes. Why does tool adoption so often masquerade as digital transformation?
So, I think across the board and in my experience and my work as well, there's a huge misconception that, throwing technology at a problem will fix the problem. But I distinctly remember, I always come back to this saying that I recall in my first year of uni, way back in Australia. In one of my classes, our lecturer said, technology is an enabler. It is not a solution. And at that point, I was like, I don't know what that means. But as I've worked in, tech and MarTech and so on, it's really, come to light that, oh my goodness, tech is meant to enable and help the process along, improve the process along, but it's not the solution. And really, when it comes to digital transformation, there's a huge need to, sometimes just kind of be trendy, adopt the newest technology because that's what your competitors are doing, or that's where the market is going. Or even for some of our organizations to look like we're doing something. We've implemented the newest AI tool. We are, now on agentic AI, or now we are, the latest CRM system. But, it's never going to work unless, number one, people think about the problem, defining the problem. What exactly is the problem we're trying to solve, number one. Assessing what are the viable solutions that we can implement. Look internally, do we have the right people in place? Do we have the right processes in place? Can we train? Can we hire? And so on. I'll give you an example, from one of my recent clients who I worked with. They are a medium-sized business exporting products globally, doing through international e-commerce. And they had implemented, a very high-level solution for e-commerce, had integrated also an email marketing solution, really high level, fairly, expensive to maintain these products. And when they brought me in, I could see, they were like not even using that email marketing platform at all. They had heard that, CRM and email marketing is good. And so they went and purchased the product, not really thinking like, okay, so do we need this level of product? Number one, do we have the know-how in-house to actually run the programs and structure the journeys and so on effectively? They'd had the solution for about a year and had only sent 2 emails from there, So,
Yeah.
$1,000 plus being spent a year and only 2 emails and really nothing to show. So again, digital transformation is not just throw a product and it's going to work. It takes time, it takes thinking, it takes assessment, and it's about people. It's about thinking about your processes and how you're going to get people to get the most out of it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking, what's the actual difference between an organization that uses a CRM and one that has been genuinely transformed by it?
Mm, wow. So, one that's been transformed by it is really one where you can tell the strategy, the business strategy from A to B has embedded, the CRM platform and the CRM strategy. And when I say strategy, it means, okay, who are we trying to capture with this CRM tool? How are we going to do the data capture? Have we done the right integrations? Is our data clean enough? When the data comes in, what happens to the data? What segments have we created, and why do we have these segments created, and what do we want to gain from these segments? So a company that has totally transformed, with adoption of CRM, you can tell that everything the business does or everything the marketing team or CRM team does, it's a complete link from A to B where you can see a flow, a logical reason for everything, and you can tie every action into a strategy, a strategic idea or strategic point that they're trying to reach and, grow revenue. So I think transformation is, it has been embedded in the organization. Everybody also understands why this tool is there, It's not just hanging
Uh-huh.
on, on the side. Everybody understands why this tool is there, why the data needs to feed into that tool, and so on. So those are some of the key things, that can demonstrate a company has transformed using a tool like, a CRM tool.
Yeah. Um, so I just had to sit down. This is, I'm trying to walk here, but I had to sit down because of all the wind, and yeah. So that's why I'm suddenly at a halt here. So you work across very different markets: Australia, Kenya, across the African continent. Is this would you say it's a universal failure, or does it look different in different contexts?
Mm. I think the problem around throwing technology for the sake of throwing technology, that one is across the board. Whether it's in a mature market or underserved market, there's always this thinking that tech will solve the problem. I think the differences come in maybe on the side of, maturity in terms of knowledge of systems, maybe, more digital literacy kind of differences, things around infrastructure differences, whether data is already being captured effectively and is clean data. I think in some markets, I think in the emerging markets, data capture has not been a really focused item for a lot of businesses. So data can be all over the place, or they've not been collecting data, for example. Whereas I think, in my work in Australia, a lot of companies were collecting a lot of data. And the key thing was like, okay, how do we clean this data and make it more meaningful? Maybe in terms of the talent or the knowledge of the people in the business, it's changing a lot here in the emerging markets in Kenya and other African markets I've worked with. But I think that might be a slight difference between a market like Australia and here. Those would be the three key differences I would see.
Yeah. Like the pattern is the same, it's just different scales, maybe. You have like that they treat the like the failure is the same as you mentioned, and but it's just a different scale, different velocity of the failure, kind of.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So when you walk into a client engagement today, um, what's the first signal that tells you that this is a tool adoption story being dressed up as a transformation? What's the telltale?
I think number one, when I look at the tools, maybe this is the first meeting.
Mhm.
I think the first meeting before I get into the tools, I think asking questions like why. If I ask the question as to why was this solution selected? Who is operating the tool? And when I hear, answers where someone doesn't really know, they're like, well, it's the tool that was recommended by someone. I'm like, okay. Just going back that example that I gave earlier about this company that exports and through international e-commerce. The tool they
Mhm.
adopted was a very, very expensive tool. But when I prodded and asked, why they chose that tool, they were not able to tell me why. When I asked, who has been running the tool, has there been any training that's been done? I did not get any clear answers. So it was definitely a question of adoption here was not happening. It was just not happening.
What's the one thing organizations most consistently skip when they roll out new technology in Europe, and in your opinion?
I think training, adequate training, is super important. Um, I think before anybody starts building anything in the tools, this is assuming that, everything's been done correctly up until that point, the assessment of needs, the assessment of the right solution, the assessment of talent. Okay, so now all of that's good. Now we've got the tool in-house. It's important to train your teams. Because again, if they don't know how to use the tools, they won't be able to get the most out of the tools. So training is super important. I would say that would be the number one thing. Training. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Or I second that. It's there's lots of errors to be made, but training is like um, it's in my opinion also it's mandatory, but it's kind of many treat it as optional, and
Mm,
they did. That's like I've said this in a previous episode, but it's a good point, and I'll repeat it. It's like um, putting your buying this expensive race car, and you don't spend money on getting a license or
mm,
training. Yeah,
yeah.
you don't know how to handle this race car, so you will wreck it. Um,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
let's talk about CRM as infrastructure. At Jumia, you help scale CRM from a supporting marketing channel into a major revenue contributor across the region. That's not a campaign tweak. That's a fundamental rethink of what CRM is even for. How do you think about CRM as infrastructure rather than as a campaign channel?
So I would say, to start with, as the name suggests, customer relationship management. That word relationship, relationships take time to build. And so, you know, that also lends itself to the fact that it's not just a one-time channel. It's something that you have to build and deliberately figure out how you're going to create the right structures to deliver to your customer. So when it comes to, thinking about, it as an infrastructure, this means things like building, the right data capture mechanisms.
Uh,
You can't be CRM without any data. So where are you getting this data from? Is it from your website? Is it from your purchase data tool? Is it from forms? Is it from, where are you getting this data from? Again, you need to think about, okay, where am I storing the data? Again, we're building on this infrastructure question that you talked about. You think about, how do you get the data? Where are you storing it? How are you assessing the data? Are you asking the right questions of the data? That's a huge one. When it comes to data analysis, asking the right questions is super important. Not all questions are valid. And then offering the right solutions based on the trends that you are seeing in your data to your customer. So, that's why I look at it as, being an infrastructure play, which takes time to build, has a lot of moving parts, because again, CRM doesn't exist in a vacuum. It requires integrations with different platforms. It requires a lot of data analysis, a lot of building of automation, and so on. So, just as an example for, you mentioned Jumia when I led CRM there, we realized that we were burning a lot of cash, with the top of the funnel activities, and we weren't really leveraging, the opportunities that were created by already acquired customers. And so, my priority there was, how do we capture the data, the value of these customers whom we acquire? And so we had to think about, okay, what platform are we going to use? So we implemented, a CRM platform. We started looking at different patterns, whether it's looking at their buying behavior, their browsing behavior, the first product that they bought from us, the price point at which they bought, how frequently they bought, in order for us to start to come up with a framework of how we're going to serve them, effective and personalized offers and so on. And so all of this, an infrastructure play, because we had to put the building blocks together. And we also had to think about different geographies. Managing 12 different markets, all different markets were not the same. The way people were buying in Nigeria were not the same way they were buying in Morocco versus Kenya. And even language was also a big thing that we did also, testing different languages, different messages, because we didn't know, what will resonate with our customers. So, in Morocco, we were trying out, French and Darija, which is a dialect of Arabic. In Nigeria, we were looking at Pidgin English. In Kenya, we're looking at Swahili. So, it really is, CRM is a big, engine that can really drive effectiveness, but it requires a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, and all of that.
But as you said, you were coordinating 12 country CRM calendars also simultaneously. What does that kind of scale teach you about governance and how transformation actually spreads?
It was quite fun, actually. Well, fun in terms of learning about different markets, number one, But I think, on the governance side, we had to figure out how do we ensure everyone's on the same page as the CRM team. So we had standardized calendars that we were using, and a standardized process for how each of the CRM managers in the different markets would go about analyzing their campaign results, creating new campaigns, and planning for them in the calendar. We also had certain rules around, timing of messages, like frequency of sending messages. So each market had to figure out, okay, you're not going to send like 10 million messages. The maximum per day is X, Y, and Z, and you must keep to that. If you want to, reach your performance, because each country had a performance target, you had to figure out, okay, is 5 messages enough? For example, I don't remember the exact number of messages we had, but you had to figure out, okay, based on the targets we have, are these messages effective enough, and are they within the guardrails we've been given? We also had, weekly catch-ups where every single market would have to, tell us how their campaigns are going, what are their plans, and all of that. So we had quite a lot of guardrails, processes, documents that each of the countries had to adhere to. And that's, how we managed to, how I managed to keep everything in check and things moving.
What would you say is the operational difference between running CRM as campaigns versus running it as a life cycle system?
Interesting. When I think of campaigns, I think of one-offs, let's say Mother's Day. That's a campaign. Within CRM, you can have campaigns for sure. But again, you always have to have 2 layers. With CRM, you have to have 2 layers. You need to have the relationship side where you're nurturing the relationships where you're analyzing a lot of data and figuring out, okay, is someone opening the email? If they haven't opened the email, what do we do? If they've gone on the website and clicked, okay, what do we do? If their first product was X, what do we upsell them? Those are not campaign specific strategies. Those are life cycle strategies where you're really trying to figure out how do we get the most out of this person, personalize how we're reaching them, and really get them, more and more down the funnel and get the most out of, their lifetime value with us. Campaigns tend to be, one-off. So, of course, within that strategy, you do want to ensure that, your CRM cohorts do get to participate in campaigns. So you will have like an offshoot where you're like, okay, this group, let's say all women, Mother's Day is a great campaign. So let's ensure that we drive that campaign for them. So you have an offshoot and say, Mother's Day, we'll send this campaign, maybe pause a little bit of the life cycle stuff for this week, and then they can come back into the flow and continue the life cycle. So for me, campaigns are one-offs. And in a CRM context, it's important to analyze, does this campaign make sense for this cohort? Yes or no? And if it does, then you can branch them out. If not, just keep the life cycle going.
I love that because I also think that too many just do the campaign style, like 1 campaign check, 2 campaign check, and it's the thing about doing it like that, like you have the aspects where you just do activities like campaigns and check when you're done, treat it as a to-do list. But the other aspect is that running it as campaigns, it's manual because
Yeah.
you don't it setting up life cycle, setting up all this journeys or all these automations that you can do is
Mhm.
setting it up is a huge job or too big job if you're just doing it on a single send-out
Mm,
or single campaign. If it's
yeah.
not, if you're not tied into um, if it's not based on various data points to decide who's receiving the send out and not uh, kind of collecting data points on, like you said, who did read the email, who clicked on, who engaged, etc., and what's to do next. If you don't
Mm,
have any thoughts about a send out in regards to what happened before that,
mm,
or what will happen after, it's a standalone manual campaign, and
mm,
you don't have any payout to automate it. And
mhm,
I think that many businesses should move from all these single manual send out campaigns that you it takes a bit of time to set it up as a life cycle, to set it all the automations up, and you need time um to review it regularly and follow up all the automations. But um you in the same amount of hours that you normally spend on sending these few campaigns out, you can do a lot more, right?
mm.
Uh, that's
Yeah.
uh that's a huge um, aspect of it that I find it strange that so many businesses don't even think of.
I just wanted to add to that point. I think you've nailed it on the head. Again, CRM takes time to build. And you won't see the results immediately. It takes time. So I think um, many businesses, that is the issue, is understanding what CRM is, um, how it takes time to deliver results. It requires, ingestion of data, patterns to be found, and then, actions to be taken. Whereas a campaign, it seems so easy, like, oh, it's 50% off. Of course they're gonna love it. Send it out to them. Who would not want 50% off? So I think it's just understanding companies to understand, like, that's all great, but why don't you spend more time building a more strategic um, tool or strategic plan that will even go for longer?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to add a last thing to CRM as an infrastructure, and that is about retention, because retention is often the unsexy half of growth. How do you build the internal case for it inside an organization that's wired for acquisition?
How do you build? Well, going back to the example of Jumia, as you mentioned, we were investing a lot on the top of the funnel activities. And, it soon became apparent that, um, what's the word? Sustainable. It's not sustainable. So what do we do instead, rather than, running so many paid ads and, all of that, and then, have to keep doing it every single month, it became apparent, like, what do we do? So I think for organizations who are, hell-bent on this acquisition, I think it's, looking at how much are you spending on acquisition? Are you able to extract more value from those customers that you've received? Are you finding it hard to extract more value? You know, just
Mm,
a case in point. I recently was working with um, a fintech here who was looking. It's a savings platform, and they help people to save to buy items. And one of their biggest problems was, people would use their platform for the first time, save and buy the item, but then they're not coming back. And so, one of the gaps that we saw was there's no nurturing, while they are saving and while they are still with the business, they're not really telling them about anything else, like, hey, this is other products you can use with us, and so on, so that when they're done with that initial purchase, they can remember, like, oh yeah, there was this other thing that they were upselling which sounded useful. Oh, let me inquire about that. And so
Yeah.
That's a great case of, you've done all the work to acquire them. Yes, they bought from you, but they leave. But you had an opportunity when they were with you to nurture that relationship so that you can continue.
Yeah. One thing I learned first year I started working, it was in a Norway's biggest, what do you call it? Phone company. It was much more than that. It was like the state phone company until it got privatized, but it's called Telenor. And it, one of the first things I learned there, we had like this kind of sales course. I didn't work in sales, but I worked in customer service, and but we still had uh, we were being pushed to sell, even though we're customer service. And one of the things that I learned there and that I have had with me all since, forever since then, is that acquiring a new customer costs 10 times what you spend on keeping one.
Oh, that's a
So
lot.
yeah, that was there. Not sure if uh, the 10 times more suits every business, or but for them, they saw that the amount of time they put into keeping customers,
Mhm.
the getting a new customer costs 10 times more. So keep your customers happy, and of course get new customers. But if you uh, it's like you shouldn't neglect your existing customers,
Mm.
because you spend so, like, if you spend let's say $100 to make sure on activities to make sure that a customer don't leave, that's a different story. If you don't spend those $100 and they leave, and you need to spend $1,000 to get a new one to replace it, replace the customer. So yeah,
Mm.
um,
And
I would like to, huh?
oh, I wanted to as well, just agree on that point, because when you're acquiring a new customer, the messaging is you're talking to someone who doesn't even know you. So, a business is trying to say, hey, this is us. Hello. This is what we do. Whereas a customer you've already acquired, they know who you
Yep,
are. They've tried your
yep,
product. The sell is way easier than to a stranger.
yep. It shouldn't be a really difficult decision whether to keep your existing customers happy or not. But I've met people that uh, have said right out, doesn't care, we'll get new ones. If they leave, they leave. Uh, we're not gonna spend time on them. We're gonna get new customers, and they will pay. I'm like, okay. I'm not gonna come work for you, but okay. Lucky. No, no, I mean, good luck. um. So last topic is about building under constraints. A lot of your work has been in environments that don't have the luxury of a big MarTech budget, a mature data infrastructure. I'll start over. So I would like to go into the last topic of the day, building under constraints. Because a lot of your work has been in environments that don't have the luxury of a big MarTech budget, a mature data infrastructure, or a full operations team. What does good digital transformation actually look like when you're building under real constraints?
You know, having worked in emerging markets for the last 10 years, it's really been quite interesting to understand the constraints, in these markets, Kenya, where I'm based, and also different countries I've worked with around Africa. For me, the biggest thing has been, it comes down to understanding the people that you are solving the problem for. In emerging markets, we, have several constraints, which include things like, digital literacy. Not everybody, has a smartphone. Not everybody has a laptop. Not everybody knows how to use all these tools online, that we assume they do. Um, you know, access to data, access to Wi-Fi, or even affordable data. That's improving. Affordable data is improving, but still, with the markets and all of that, not everybody has that access. So it's been quite interesting, running projects here, and trying to adapt my lens to understand the constraints. So one of the interesting projects that I've worked on over the last few years has been capacity building in the coffee sector, coffee export fields with an NGO. And my work has been centering around skilling up women-owned SMEs who grow coffee and export it to markets like, Norway, Australia, and so on. So these women business owners are, they're serious businesswomen in their own right. I mean, they're growing acres and acres of coffee. They are exporting that coffee. But one huge constraint that they encountered was during COVID, when a lot of the coffee buyers who used to come from overseas to visit their farms and taste their coffee couldn't travel. During COVID, no one could travel. So they hit a huge snag of like, oh, okay, how do we sell our coffee if no one is coming from our buying markets? And so this project that I worked on was really around skilling up these women with how do you use digital tools to build your online presence to be found by your global clients. And, I assumed everybody, knew how to use Instagram, knew how to build, content, knew how to tell stories and branding and all of that. And I was shocked when I started, training. I was like, oh my goodness, everything I took for granted, having worked in corporate, like everybody gets this. It was like, wow, okay. I need to understand who are my students, need to understand that I need to adjust my training methods, figure out if I need to do one-on-one coaching, for those who maybe are not so comfortable with even a Zoom call. Some of them had never even done a Zoom call before. So I even had to start from that point. Yeah. From that point of like, okay, click on this link. I'm on the phone with them and I'm like, click on this link. Okay, what is it doing? Okay, now you'll see a picture, and it was quite, humbling, but really gave me a lesson in terms of like, digital transformation, getting people into the digital economy. You have to start and understand where they're coming from, then be able to effectively train them so that they can participate, effectively and learn effectively. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there something that well-resourced organizations with a full stack, the full budget and the team could learn from how transformation has to happen in constrained environments?
Definitely, I think going back to the people element, who are you solving the problem for? And do you understand them fully? Having all the bells and whistles doesn't mean that, you'll be able to solve the problem. You could, roll out the shiniest of solutions, be well resourced and be able to build the best product. But if you don't understand the people you're building for, it's not going to work. So, another example that I, can give as well is, when having worked, in the product space and having led a team building an e-commerce app, when we launched the app, we quickly learned that, yes, we thought everybody, the small businesses needed an app to get onto e-commerce and will make their life easy. But some of the things we learned when we launched it was, payments. How are we going to receive payments? It was a great product, had a beautiful UX, was easy to use, but in terms of how we're going to make money from it, that was an issue because in emerging markets like Kenya, for example, using debit cards or credit cards for subscriptions is not a big thing. The card penetration is 1%, 2%. In this market, we use mobile money. I'm sure you've heard of M-Pesa, where we pay things through our phones. And there's no current way of how to really use that for subscriptions really well at that point. So, we had the best product, but then we kind of missed that constraint. So, being well resourced, having the right team and the budget, again, you have to think about who are you solving it for? Have you thought through all the different constraints and loops and hoops that they could potentially your users could potentially encounter that would hinder them from fully enjoying your product or fully using your product.
Fiona, you work a lot with women-led businesses and women in tech. Is there a dimension there to how digital transformation gets accessed or not accessed that the industry tends to overlook?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll take the question in two parts. When we talk about women-led businesses, it's fairly well documented around the gap with which women have had access to technology. I think across the continent, in urban areas, the numbers are, looking more promising that, women do have the access to technology and a phone and data. But, the more we go outside of the urban areas, there's a huge access problem in terms of, some women are not even allowed to, own a phone or that kind of thing. But it's changing rapidly. But it's still a big problem in terms of women having access to technology and so on. When I think about, my work also with, women in tech, that's a huge thing that we're trying to fix. Actually, the mission for women in tech is to empower 5 million women and girls by 2030 with skills, opportunities in tech. Because it's, as I mentioned, there is a problem with women accessing this information and these platforms. The data shows that also, enrollment for girls in STEM courses has increased over the years, but it's still nowhere near where it needs to be in terms of getting at par with, the men. And also when it comes to, the workplace, the girls who are going into the workplace to do really, STEM and technical roles, the numbers are still not where they ideally should be. So that's really what inspired me to be part of Women in Tech's mission. I am a girl who got into STEM, inspired by, my mother who pushed me to get into STEM. So I want to give back to other women, other girls who are looking to get into STEM, other women business owners who want to participate in the global economy. That's why I do the work I do, because I'm like, I've had that opportunity, and why not share my skills and lend my skills in order to pull, women into the digital economy, pull young girls into the tech industry, to close that gap.
Yeah, that's I think that what you described there is in the beginning, what you described is a situation that I personally think is, how it's not supposed to be. And I really think that the work you do there is so important, and I couldn't support you more in what you're doing. Um, Obviously, I could support you more if I was closer, but it's difficult to do that from here. But but I I really love all these posts that you post on LinkedIn, um, on the all the initiatives, all the events that you're participating in, and which is mostly also the reason why this episode is recorded now and not, back in February, because you've been so busy doing all this. And yeah, it's a huge thing of paid back, paid forward. I think that you're doing with this work. So that's amazing.
I just wanted to add, your support, in terms of featuring me on your podcast and allowing me, to have this platform is a form of support. So yeah, thank you for the support, because, I'll get to tell the story and share the story. And so you are supporting. So thank you.
Uh, uh, Happy to help. To be honest, I just wanted to have you on the podcast because I I appreciate you as the person you are and the work you do, and but if it can help in any way other than that, that's just amazing. So before we start the end of the episode, I'm gonna do something with you as the first guest on the show. I mentioned it previously when we before we started recording. So this is kind of a curveball, but should be a pleasant, fun curveball. So I have these questions. It's like a pop quiz, and it's 4 categories, and let's see how many we have time for, but like 2 or 3. Let me see. I have 4 topics or categories. Choose one of them first. It's future and gut, the craft, unspoken truths, and change in AI.
Ooh. Okay, so it was, just repeat them again.
Future and gut, the craft, unspoken truth, and change in AI.
Gosh, oh, they're so cryptic.
You're lucky that you can choose topic, because at Anticon they will just have to pick a card.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
should I pick one for you?
You know what? Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that. You pick one for me. Yeah.
Okay, so I just picked one. Okay, we'll try change an AI.
Okay.
What's your most recent wait, AI can do that moment?
Hmm. So maybe I don't know if this. Well, so for the podcast, um, one of the things I learned or something, I learned to do was when it comes to writing posts. Posts that accompany the what's it called, the podcast. I discovered that I could input the transcript, the transcript from the episode into, ChatGPT to write for me posts, really contextual posts. Because before I would say, write me a post, generally describing what the podcast was about. But the other day I was like, I, understand the more context you give the LLM, the better the output. So I was like, why don't I get my transcript and plug it into ChatGPT and tell it, based on this transcript, create for me, posts. And the results were really good. I'm like, wow, that just saved me so much time, and it sounds really good, and it's really context specific.
Yeah, I know. Give AI the kind of really strained or really, sharp context, and it performs much better than if you just give it the whole world of options. But we'll go with a similar question like the last one today. If AI took half your job tomorrow, what would you do with the free time?
Well, would it take half of my job and I'm still making the same money, or am I making half the money as well?
Let's pretend you keep the money.
All right, if I keep the money, I'm going to the beach, man. I'm still making money.
Yeah, I probably would do something like that too. Great. So before we officially wrap up, if someone's listening to this, is sitting inside an organization that just bought a new platform and they're already quietly worried it's going to end up like every other tool that didn't take, what's the one thing they should do differently this time?
Okay, so they've already bought the tool. So they made the investment. I would say, just take a pause and figure out, okay, why again did you buy this? Why did you invest in this? What problem were you trying to solve? If the tool is completely misaligned, then, you may need to figure out what to do about that. Or if it's a case of, okay, maybe we didn't understand exactly the capabilities of this tool. Are we 100% clear on the problem? Are we 100% clear on the capabilities of the tool? How can we start to mesh the two? What we needed, problem we're solving, and what capabilities, features are in this product that can help us achieve it. Yeah, I would say, take a pause back and ask the question, what were we trying to solve initially?
Yeah. Where can people find you, follow your work, or reach out?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn. My name is Fiona Ngaruro. You can also find me on my podcast, MarTech Unravelled Podcast, and it's on all platforms: Apple, YouTube, Spotify. Find me, engage with my content. I'd love to hear from you, hear your perspectives, and learn from each other and work with each other as well.
I'll leave links to that in the description, of course. And by that, Fiona Ngaruro, thanks for being on the Ordinary Marketing Ops podcast.
Thank you very much, Odd. This was such an amazing opportunity. I'm so glad we did it. And I look forward to many, many more interactions.
Yeah, me too. And for those watching, catch you in the next one.